What's going on, everyone? In this video today, we're going to go over the question that often gets asked: would lifters be at the same point they were without their coach? So as always, let's get right into the video. Alrighty, what's going on, my powerlifting people? Thank you for tuning in to another video and checking out the channel. And if you're new here to the channel and you don't know who I am, my name is Aaron Kamesi. I'm a powerlifting coach, athlete, referee, and meet director. So I make videos here on the channel to help out those groups of people. In this video today, we're going to break down a question that gets asked often: is whether lifters would be at the same point they're currently at if they didn't have their coach. And oftentimes this question is asked for, the end result where the lifter is already an elite level lifter, and they ask, okay, would they still have been elite without their coach? Kind of maybe hinting at like, oh, the coach isn't as valuable as some people claim, or maybe that genetics would have gotten there regardless of their coach. But also you can think of the same question when it comes to all levels, especially that beginner level, because oftentimes if you're unsuccessful or have a bad experience when you're first getting into the sport, then that can lead to you just leaving and not competing ever again, versus if you had a successful first meet, then that can build that momentum to continue to stay in that sport. So whether you are elite or not, if you had a bad first experience, you may just leave the sport forever and never get to that end point. So for this video, we're going to try and break down all the different levels and go over my thoughts of what I think coaches can be beneficial for and whether lifters can get that same point without them. And obviously when we go over all these different topics, I'm going to be a bit biased since I am a coach. So I obviously think a coach is more valuable than maybe some people that aren't coaches out there. So let's get right into it. And the first thing we're going to go over obviously is that beginning point, is getting a lifter to their first powerlifting competition. And a coach can be very beneficial in that process, because when you're outside of the sport, it's hard for you to know what's going on as far as how to find a federation, how to find a competition within that federation, the equipment, the rules, and just all those little things to get to that first competition. So a coach can really help them know what federations in their state or in their country, know what the schedule is, and find a good competition that they can go and enter and compete at. And of course, knowing all the rules as far as the competition standards for the rules of performance, and then the equipment that is allowed. So they can let them know where to buy a singlet, whether their belt's allowed or not, have the long socks on for deadlift, and then also just looking at their training videos from week to week to make sure the squats are down to depth, the benches are paused with the butt staying down, the head staying down, the feet flat on the ground, and then making sure their deadlifts are locked out. All these things from the coach can help set the lifter up for success going into their first competition. In addition, at their first competition, their coach, or maybe if they just have a handler for that day, can help set them up for a successful first day as far as going through the check-in process, knowing how to time the warm-ups, picking smart attempts so that they actually make their attempts, and then having a successful meet because of that. So I go to almost all the local meets in Florida, and always have lifters that show up late to weigh-in. They don't know what to do, maybe they don't know where their equipment was, they forgot their deadlift socks, maybe they forgot their belt, then maybe they timed their warm-ups wrong and their name's being called out that the bar's loaded for them and they're still in the warm-up room warming up. And also maybe they do their first or second attempt and they kind of just forget and they walk away from the scoring table and they never put in their next attempt. So all these little things that can lead into having a bad first meet, including bombing out, which could be fixed if you had a coach or a handler there to help you through the process. Kind of like a tour guide. You're going to a city, you want to go and have a fun time, but you don't know what to look for. Maybe you didn't research it, and maybe it's difficult to research what are fun things to do, so you just pay someone to take you around and have a good time. So the same thing happens with a coach or a handler for meet day, is that maybe it's hard to find the meet and find the rules, or you just don't have time for it because you're just doing this on the side as a hobby. So you just pay someone to do everything for you on meet day and make sure you have a successful first meet. From there, the next thing we'll go into is if you want to go up as far as the level of meets, and let's say you are an elite level lifter, or maybe you're just an intermediate level lifter and you're done doing low competitions, you want to know, how do I get to the national championships, how do I get to the continental championships or the world championships? So again, a coach can help direct you through that process. They know the qualifying totals, they know the qualifying process to make a national team to go to world. They can figure out for you specifically what division, what weight class would you be most competitive in, because they know the previous results, or they know who the common competitors are that show up to these championships, and so they can direct you to where you have the most probability of winning nationals, or going to worlds, or even just breaking a record in a specific division. So if you took an elite level lifter and you brought them back in time to when they're first starting up in a sport, and you took their coach out of there, they may not know how good they are. They may not know that they can win nationals. They may not know they can break an American record, and maybe then they miss out on the opportunity. Maybe they don't even know that nationals might be in their home state, and it could be like an easy drive to go compete and see how they play. Maybe they get top 5, maybe they get top 3, maybe they get invited to the Arnold Sports Festival. So all these things is like information and experience that the coach has from being in the sport for years, knowing, where the championships are being moved to, knowing the qualification process for those championships, knowing who the top competitors are and where you'd be the most competitive at which championship and which weight class, all those kinds of things. And again, that covers the process to get to those higher level competitions. But again, the coach can be very beneficial at those higher level competitions where the placing becomes very important, which means the game plan becomes much more important than the local level competitions. So you as an elite level lifter can say, hey, I don't need a coach, I'm strong enough, I'll just go to the meet and I'll just do it myself. But then you have to do everything yourself. You might have to load your own weights, you have to time your own warm-ups, you have to see how the competition is going, if your competitor made their third attempt or not, how to change your third attempt deadlift so you can get the placing that you want, and do all this stuff by yourself. Whereas the coach can be very beneficial in taking all that stuff out of the plate of the lifter, and the lifter can just focus on going out on the platform and making their lifts. The coach will keep track, leading up into the competition and at the competition, as far as your competitors, of what they weighed in at, what their attempts are, what they're making, what they're missing, knowing the rules, knowing how to change all the attempts and everything like that, to again set up the lifter to have the best probability to place as high as possible and possibly even win. So depending on how knowledgeable the lifter is, maybe they can do those things on their own, maybe they don't get stressed out at the competition, maybe they did enough research going into the competition, knowing their competitors, and they can basically handle themselves and be able to place as high as possible. But for some lifters, they don't do that. So for some lifters, they don't know all the rules as far as changing attempts, they don't follow their competition, maybe they don't come up with a good game plan, they're biased towards their own numbers and they think they can do more than they're capable of, and then they would do worse without a coach. And another thing a coach can help with going from the starting point to where a lifter is now is speeding up that process through that timeline, using their experience and learning from the coach's mistakes that they've made for themselves or made with previous lifters in the past. So a lifter first coming into a sport may have ideas as far as what technique is best for them, what programming to do, what kind of frequency, exercises, even the different competitions they want to do. But a coach may see hey, we've tried this before with other lifters and it did not work. Or hey, for you, I think for your leverages compared to these other lifters that have with these same leverages, this is what I think works best as far as high bar, low bar, sumo, conventional, those kinds of things. So instead of a lifter being on their own without a coach and going and testing these things as a kind of trial and error process, okay, let me try sumo, okay, it didn't work out for me, let me go back to conventional, let me try a more wider grip on my bench press, okay, that didn't work, let me go back to my regular grip. They can instead just use the coach and know, hey, there's a high probability from my experience and everything like that this is what's going to work best for you, and skip that trial and error process. So when it comes to many industries, this is what a lot of people or business will do. They'll hire some kind of coach or mentor or consultant to come in and see their problem and give them a solution and learn from mistakes that they have gained from their experience, rather than you going and making the same mistakes and then having a longer time it takes to get to that end point that you're trying to get to. And another big factor where coaches can be beneficial for some lifters is some lifters are just biased towards themselves. They can be their worst enemies. They feel they have to push it, harder and harder every single session, or they think they're capable of more and more and set really unrealistic high goals for themselves, or maybe they want to do 5, 6, 7 competitions in a year, and so they're just biased towards themselves and their own capabilities, and they need to have a third party look in and tell them what they need to hear and do the things that they need to be doing. So for some of these elite level lifters that you see right now, if you took them back in time and you took their coach away, then they may do things that would hurt them along the way, as far as again the number of competitions they're doing, the programming, or anything like that. And so that could maybe lead to slower progress, it can lead to injuries, or it can lead to bad performances, which all those also can lead to not making it to the point they're at now, or maybe even falling off the sport completely. So I know a lot of people kind of see their coach as like a bad person. Oh, my coach is holding me back, he won't let me do this competition, or won't let me go heavy enough in this competition, or won't let me go heavy enough in this training week. But the coach is there to guide you. They're trying to ease you or nudge you in the right direction and hold you back from hurting yourself or pushing yourself harder than you need to. And of course the coach can give you more realistic goals and plans as far as which competitions you're capable of doing and what numbers you're able to achieve in those competitions along the way. So when it comes to all these factors we're going over, it just depends on you as a lifter, what kind of personality you have, what kind of biases you have towards yourself, and what kind of research and effort you would want to put into doing things on your own rather than having a coach do those things for you along the way. So if you are a lifter that maybe overestimates what you're capable of and doesn't look into the rule book or what competitions you can do to qualify for certain competitions, then a coach would get them to a point that they would not be able to get without that coach. But on the flip side, if you are someone who is very into reading up on the rules and learning how to qualify for certain competitions and being very unbiased towards your lifts and not pushing yourself too hard, then maybe taking the coach out of the equation wouldn't affect that process of what point you're at now too much. So with a lot of these questions that always get submitted here, it just depends on the person and the scenario. But hopefully this video helped you out, and if you want to see other helpful tips and tricks here on the channel, you can check out my powerlifting tips playlist right here, or you can just check out the last video I put up by clicking right here. Other than that, hope you guys had a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.